Here we go. So what I want to talk about today, or at least start with today, is looking at different text editors. Not even so much text editors, but NC editors. So whenever you post this out into G-code, it's going to open up in an editor. So by default, when I post this out, as most of you are probably already aware of, it's going to open up in the Mastercam Code Expert, which here it comes. It's loading. It's coming. Hopefully it's coming. There we go. Maybe. There. All right. There it is. Okay. So code opens up by default in Mastercam's Code Expert. Code Expert is a text editor. It is an NC code editor. The difference between text editor and an NC code editor is just that there's some functions built into the software that are useful for you as an NC programmer, as a CNC machine programmer. Stuff like these, automatic block numbering is super handy. Being able to skip tools, quickly forward and reverse. I don't have a big program here, so this isn't useful for me in this case, but if you had a program with 15, 20 tools, you could easily step to the next tool just by clicking this button. So the text document here, it sees the word T, finds it, moves to it, and makes things easy. So NC code editors have built-in functions specific to someone who might be dealing with G-code. Okay, so that's great. There's other stuff inside Mastercam's Code Expert. I'm going to touch on a few things to start, but then kind of breeze over some of the other things and then come back to those later. So we did notice that this took a little bit to open up. My computer is not the best in the world, but it's also not terrible, where that it should take forever for a simple text editor to open up. But in the Code Expert, there's more things than just the text editor. There's this multi-stream guy, which if you had a machine that supported it, you'd be able to use, and that would be a game changer as far as not having it versus having it. So you would definitely want to be using this editor for this ability. There's more stuff built into it as well, which I'm going to come back to in a minute. But the point I want to make here is, yes, we can use different editors, but two, you should be using the editor depending on the job that it is you're trying to do. So in Mastercam, if you want to do a specific type of toolpath, you'll grab the correct operation for that. If you're in the shop and you want to hammer a pin, you go grab a hammer. You don't grab a screwdriver, right? So same thing in, at least my recommendations is you would grab the correct editor based on what it is you're trying to do. So let's have a look at some different editors and why you might want to pick one versus the other. Now, to change which one launches when you post G-code, that's in your config file. And it's on the start exit page, I believe. Yes, it is. And in here is editor. So by default, I think you're going to have options for Mastercam, Cimco, and other. Since I've already connected a few others in here, I'm already given the option to pick them. I'll go through a quick demo on how to pick something other in a second, but I'll go to this first Cimco here. This one, I believe, is included in the Mastercam install. I'm just going to click no here because I don't want to save this to my config file. But I post this now, it should open up in Cimco, which I think will open up off my screen. I'll just kind of drag it over here. I don't think we need it that big. So it opens up in Cimco Edit. Now this is the free Cimco. So there's some features of full Cimco that this one's missing. But it's still, it's going to work fine as a text editor or an NC code editor. It's got some NC code functions in here. Some typical text functions in here, copy, paste, find, all that kind of stuff. Still got your transmission guy in here, so you could send this over DNC to your machine if you're doing that. Some compare functions, which are very useful. Less functionality in here than there is in Mastercam's expert or code expert. So this, because there's less going on in this program, it will launch quicker. With that, oh, so there's a question here. What would I be comparing? That's a good idea. Maybe I should talk about that right now. And I can make this same point at the same time as I do a compare here. So I mentioned that this launches faster than Mastercam's Code Expert. It's not that the code is posting any faster into them. It's just that the program takes a little bit longer to open. Now, if I don't close this program down, then the amount of time it takes to launch the program is now a non-factor. So if you don't close this editor down, how long it takes to post code won't ever be an issue. So I'm going to go back into my main program here. I'm going to make a small little change. Let's go 510 deep, hit OK. And I did not close that launcher down or that editor down. I'm going to post this G code after I rebuild it. And I'm going to name it something different, just so I don't lose that first file. Okay, and so it opens up pretty much instantaneously. So when you're not launching the editor, it should take way less time to do this. So there I've got two different pieces of code. Now this is a very short, simple program, and it's probably easy to see where the change is right in our depth right there. But with these two files, I can click this button here, and it brings up a compare, and it shows me what's different between these two files. This is useful if you are, say, editing a post and you want to see how that post edit you've just done has affected your code. This makes it very simple. Another instance is maybe you have good solid code that you've ran 100 times and you've made a small tweak in Mastercam and reposted. Maybe you want to compare those to see where the difference in code is. Maybe by year in Mastercam there's been an update to your post and you want to see where the changes are. Very useful to do some compares, which in Cimco is just a click of a button. We'll talk about that again back in Mastercam's editor in a second. Okay, so other than that, there's not much else that we can do in here. Let me just exit this compare, and I'm going to close down T1. I'm going to mention this here. Maybe I shouldn't. I'm not sure if this is a bug or a feature. The big thing about Cimco Edit, especially the full version, is it's got the ability to backplot your G code, and you can see it in a little backplot window. In this base install of Cimco, there's no way to backplot that, but if you do the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-P, it will open up the backplot, and you can kind of quickly go through your code and see what it looks like. One thing you need to know about this is it's not going to be machine specific as far as the codes that it backplots. So if you're running a Fago or something or an Okuma, it might not be simulating this quite correctly. And for that, you would need the full version of Cimco Edit. But yeah, I just wanted to show that out, that on this free one, you can still get this backplot window up. And again, I'm not sure if you're supposed to be able to do that, but hey, there it is. Carrying on. What other editors have we got? Plain Jane Notepad. So Notepad is the Mastercam standard text editor, super lightweight. There's not much extra in it as far as functions. But when I post this guy, you should notice that it opens up pretty much instant. I don't have much else in here as far as ability to do much. I've got my typical text functions, copy paste, that sort of thing. But for the most part, it's text. There it is. If there's not much you want to do to this text, this is probably a good option for you to use as your editor. Maybe you just want to save this out somewhere else or just do a quick little print or something. Then this is probably a good option, Notepad. So Notepad, super lightweight, not much extra functionality, launches very quickly, and that's all there is to really say about Notepad. Next up, let's have a look at we'll go into Notepad++. This is what I would consider probably the best editor you can use if you're not using an editor for backplotting. So it opens up very quickly. There's a ton of extra functionality as far as interacting with your code. There's macro recorders. You might notice right now that the text here is showing up just black and white. It's just not highlighted depending on the code that's being generated, which you did see inside of Cimco, which you did see inside of Mastercam's editor as well. However, with Notepad++, you can actually define your language. And with this, you've got like super customizable ability in any code that you want. So in Cimco, what we saw was a line like this, the whole thing would show up red because it's a rapid movement. The whole thing would be red. Inside Notepad++, I can get down to highlighting G0 is a certain color versus G90 is a certain color, versus Z moves a certain color versus X's, all that stuff. So nice that you can fully customize your code that way. It's got built-in compare as well, same as Cimco did. But yeah, Notepad++ is probably my go-to editor for anything unless you want to do backplotting. So with that, I'm going to finally touch on the full version of Cimco. So this one, you have to pay for it. It costs money. You know, with that money, you do get some extra goodies. And this will take a second to load up because it's got those extra goodies to deal with. So there's that highlighting I was talking about where rapid motion shows up all red. This full version of Cimco, at least my full version of Cimco, has got that backplot that we talked about, little cheat to get into. It's also got solid animation as well, so you can see your code. Let me just do a quick little stock definition there. And you can actually see this thing machining a solid model. Okay, so that's, again, useful. This is different than Mastercam because, again, Mastercam Mastercam will simulate the programs that it's made inside of Mastercam, but to get to G code, it has to go through a post-processor, and that resulting G code can be different than what you saw in Mastercam. So although it shouldn't be, if you have a guy that's good with his post, you should be exactly what you see in Mastercam is what you would get in your G code. But something like this is very useful and not a bad double check before you put it on your $1 million machine and push go. Okay, so that was the full version of Cimco. Now, why would we pick something that's not Cimco? So let me go back to this for 1 second again. Back to my analogy there, we're grabbing the right tool depending on what it is you want to do. If you need to do synchronization in your NC code, Mastercam is the way to go. If you want to be able to backplot your G code, Cimco is the way to go. If you're doing any sort of heavy editing in the text, I would suggest Notepad++. Mastercam, no. I want to go back and touch on this for a minute. So this is where we're going to get finally into something a little bit more advanced, which was the whole point of talking about editors. The Mastercam editor, as mentioned, has extra functionality into it. I'm just going to launch a version of it here. Just give me a second to open this up. Here we go. Kind of. There it is. Okay. So there, whoops, let me just leave that minimized for a bit. There you see file compare. So Mastercam's editor here, it would need an external program to do the compare. So that's a difference there as well. If you want to do a file compare, something else needs to be added into the Mastercam one. So as I mentioned, one of the big key factors or big bonuses in the Mastercam editor is the multi-stream. There is another thing here that I wanted to point out. If you come in here and go File New, we've got options here for different file types that we want to create. An NC file, a VBScript, or a code document. This is the one I want to look at right now, this Mastercam VBScript. VBScripts. I guess before we dig into this, let me just have a peek at comments, and before we go on to another topic, I'll just see.